What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Photo Finish, Scott Radio's home for motorsports in general and NASCAR in particular. I'm your host, Ben Schneider, joined once again by Matt Cole.
Good to be back.
And for the second time this semester, another hockey enthusiast and host of The End here on Scott Radio, Chase Draus.
I'm only here so I don't get fined. I'm sorry, I had to.
Well, Chase, I do want to start with you. Matt and I talked a lot last week about Bob Pockrass being laid off by ESPN, and this, of course, is basically their last motorsports journalist full-time being laid off of a network. So what does that say about their coverage? And you, of course, are a big hockey fan. So what's your reaction to the Pockrass news?
So kind of the big thing with me right now is that ESPN used to cover hockey a lot. And, early 2000s, 90s, it was a big deal. And, now it's kind of like, hockey's kind of a thought of the past. And, you get a lot of, a lot of Reddit users are kind of roasting ESPN a lot. Some people are saying, some people are calling it the SJW ESPN, the Eastern Sports, or I don't even know what it stands for, but social justice. And pretty much they only say that they only care about LeBron, they only care about the NFL, and they really stopped caring about the NHL a long time ago. And a lot of people are also saying that the contract with NBC was a big deal. And I mean, for the most part, I can think, Fox is really the big cover, or the one who really covers motorsports right now, right?
Fox and NBC.
Fox and NBC.
I would say actually NBC is probably number one. Fox is number two after that.
So I think that could also be part of it because right now ESPN is in direct competition with those networks, and it's really bad because I don't think that ESPN is supposed to be about all sports. It's the sports broadcasting network.
The worldwide leader in sports.
The worldwide leader in sports. However, they only care about basketball and football. Maybe baseball, depending on the time of year. But even then, they're starting to cover baseball less and less because And I feel like other sports are starting to suffer because you got MLS right now, which is really up and coming. I haven't heard a lot of stuff from them. You got the NHL, which is as popular as ever. You got.
They're expanding.
I know, they're expanding again with Seattle and. Then you get, NASCAR and, motorsports racing, which, I'm surprised they haven't started talking about the W Series on ESPN because, ESPN is very progressive and they haven't really talked about, the fact that, hey, we're going to have an all-female race. Honestly, I think they'd be jumping all over that, like white on rice, but, I guess not. So I feel like ESPN right now, right now, a hockey analyst, I don't know how many they have. I think there might be one, but even then, I think he's only part-time now.
Is Barry Melrose still with the network?
I'm not 100% on that.
He is. Yeah,
he is.
He's still
okay.
there. Yeah.
So you got one analyst,
him,
and pretty much they only keep him around for the Stanley Cup because it's arguably one of them. The Stanley Cup playoffs are arguably one of the most watched sports events, of the year. So I don't know. I think that's kind of why, and I mean that's kind of also with going back to motorsports with this they Fox and NBC are the big coverage or cover most of the races. I think that's kind of hurting them with because I remember ESPN as a kid I remember that when it was Cup season they would cover a lot.
They had the second half basically of the Cup schedule and then all of the I guess what was then the nationwide schedule. But.
And I think this is also something that came from an ESPN writer. Sherman Doria, I believe. We don't hate hockey. When I worked in Boston as a sports editor for the Boston Globe, I probably went to more Bruins game than Celtics. There's no better in-house sports than hockey. Launching it live, my own personal feeling is that it never transferred well to television. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I feel like that's a lot. The same can be said for auto racing, because I thoroughly enjoyed going to the races in New Hampshire. They were so much fun. Working them, for a volunteer, work. I got to, meet a couple of the drivers, got to meet some of the crew, and they're generally good people. And it was a very entertaining race that year. However, it just got to the point where, now people aren't really aware that's going on, or, only the diehards. And, I feel like it's kind of going to be like that forgotten gem where it's just, kind of like a cornerstone of America, if you catch my drift. So.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I appreciate your perspective on that.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, thinking of it from a college hockey standpoint in particular, because the NCAA has strict regulations in the contract that they sign. My father works for the NCAA, so I can say this here. I think he showed me kind of the outline of how ESPN runs the airing of their games. It's a very, very strict outline where every block of time from an hour before puck drop until an hour after puck drop is detailed. And they do cover it fairly well, but just the national tournament, as far as they don't cover any of the regular season games or anything like that. But it's so strict, and they don't offer any leeway. They say, we're going to commercial here. If the play isn't dead or whatever, they'll run the commercial next to the game. It's just, they're very very stubborn, and it's nice to have a strict outline, but at the same time, they're not willing to work with anyone else. It's their way or the highway, and I think that's why you only see them really covering football and basketball, is because no one really wants to deal with that.
I also think part of it is just like national interest, because I mean, think about it. LeBron, when he originally decided to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers, ESPN had a dedicated special to it. Like, you would never get the same thing with Jimmie Johnson. Like, all right, where is he going? Like, if there was a national special about Jimmie Johnson and where he wanted to go, I would probably be like tickled pink. Like, it just would just be like, what? How? Like, it would be great.
Well, I don't think Jimmie Johnson would do that either.
Yeah, I mean,
LeBron had his decision and wanted to put it on national TV.
Yeah, I think part of it is boiling down to national interest, because I mean, the thing with racing fans is that they're bitterly loyal. Racing fans are some of the most loyal fans out there. I mean, you know, there have been people who, you know, have been rooting for a guy for like 20, 30 years. They've never met the guy. They're like, yeah, no, he's the best racer of all time. He's like such a good guy. You know, like, you never met him. But yet they still continually say that he's the best driver, that he's going to win it all. And they can, like, fight for it, like hardcore. Like, same can be said for hockey. Same can be said for, you know, just about any sport that really doesn't get a whole lot of attention. Like, the fans are loyal. I mean, and, you know, I think part of it is, you know, local ratings boost national ratings in terms of the NHL. And a lot of the, you know, people that would be boosting the ratings on TV for NASCAR, well, I mean, they're the ones actually showing up to the race. So I think that's also part of the debate, is how do we get, you know, transfer the experience from, in-house over to television.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think part of that is on NBC and Fox, and I mean, you know, they could put a little bit more pressure on it, because I mean, I still feel like ESPN would probably pick up the Cup Series if push came to shove. I think they could probably work out a deal with ESPN, and they would start getting a lot more attention again. But
well, the contract's run through 2024, but with how the ratings have been, I don't know how thrilled Fox and NBC would be to try to honor it all the way through.
That's very true.
It'll be interesting to see going forward. All right, so we ran a little short on time last week, trying to catch up with Homestead and everything, so we didn't get to talk too much about the Jimmie Johnson-Fernando Alonso seat swap in Bahrain. And this was very interesting because both drivers really adapted very well, very quickly, and were impressed with each other's performance. Jimmie Johnson said in particular he was impressed with how Fernando Alonso was able to control the big, heavy stock car, and likewise Fernando Alonso was impressed with Jimmie Johnson's pace. So, Matt, I want to ask you, Jimmie said he won't do IndyCar and ovals, which I guess is, you know, he's a father, the safety issue, he wants to be cautious there, and he doesn't have the experience, but he'd be open to trying it on a road course. And we know Alonso's probably open to trying anything.
Yeah.
So what would you think of seeing Jimmie part-time in IndyCar or Fernando part-time in a stock car?
I think it'd be wonderful for the sport. And it's something, again, that we've talked about on this show numerous amounts of times. It's almost, I don't want to say a necessity, but I feel like it would be a wise business move. I think both drivers would enjoy themselves. I don't think you would have to really, you know, pull their leg to get them to do it. But I think that the continued spreading of the sport in different areas through two big-name racers, obviously like these guys, I think it would be phenomenal. I would love to see it. It would shake things up. It would, especially with IndyCar. I don't know a ton about IndyCar, but if I saw Jimmie Johnson, if I knew he was racing, I'd absolutely watch it because.
And when Fernando Alonso came to run Indy last year, the ratings in Europe for the Indy 500 were up like 900%.
Wow.
Because all the F1 fans recognized Alonso as a world champion, a big name over there, and suddenly their interest in the 500 peaked.
I mean, that's also the thing. Is like, you know, people are going to watch if there's something to watch. Like, why do you think that, you know, when Danica Patrick went over to NASCAR her first season, ratings went up? because people hadn't seen a female driver in that capacity racing the way she did. And I mean, it was, she did pretty well. I mean, all things considered, because I mean, she was definitely overhyped. Like, I mean, she did win.
She won an IndyCar race.
Yeah,
she won. The best Indy 500 finish was third in 2009.
Yeah.
So she always ran well at the Speedway, but she never quite won that big race.
I know that she won one, and that was a massive deal at the time. So then
that was on ESPN.
That was then now it's along the lines of like, oh hey, like I think that's the thing is that NASCAR just needs that next big. They need that big story, because I mean people pay attention when there's a story. It's the same thing. It's like the Game 7 mentality. I mean, I know Ben's not exactly a fan of that in auto racing, and I'm not equivalating that to this at the moment. But when there's something to watch, people are going to watch. And I hate to say it, people on TV have very short attention spans. But if there's a story, people will find it, and people are going to watch and see what happens. And they're going to want to know what happens. So
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know. I think Fernando Alonso making the jump to NASCAR, that would be a big deal. And if he was able to do, and I think that's where NASCAR needs to try and pull their drivers from, and even do what the NFL is doing, do a race in Europe. That would be, I would think that would be a pretty big deal if they were able to do a street race in like somewhere in Italy, or even use the Formula.
There's talks about exhibition races in Australia going on, and
I mean,
they went to Japan in the '90s a couple of times.
I mean, that's what the same thing with the NHL is trying to do right now. I mean, seriously, they played 4 of their 5 preseason games, or 4 of the 7, I think, something like that. They played it in China, and they ended up signing a Chinese goalie to a preseason contract to actually,
Oh, I remember that.
And
I can't say his last name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
And they're like, all right, cool. And, I believe he did get some playing time. I'm not 100% on that. But, it just showed you, and ratings went up. It was a good,
sure.
So I think right now, instead of trying, they're trying to say, okay, we got to keep it alive. We got to keep it alive. Oh, we just have to keep making it more interesting. But right now, there's an audience for it around the world, because I mean, auto racing is still a very big deal. The U.S. right now is kind of in a little bit of a lull per se, but there's still an audience for it. So you know what? Try and get that global audience, because I feel like that's where the money's going to be. So.
Sure. All right. Well, it's pretty much officially the off-season. There actually is a Formula E race this weekend in Saudi Arabia, of all places.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, but
the main, a lot of jokes,
but the main motorsport season is pretty much over now. So silly season is in high gear. So we'll list off some silly season highlights here that have broken over the past few weeks. So the F1 grid is complete. I really can't remember it ever being completely filled out this early in the off-season, but Lance Stroll finally confirmed to Force India. I think we all knew that was coming, considering his father helped buy out the team earlier this season. Alexander Albon is at Toro Rosso. He'll be partnering Danny Kvyat. And Robert Kubica is coming back to Formula One full-time with Williams. And
That's a big deal.
And he has not raced in F1 since 2010. In the off-season, he had a Rally accident in early 2011. Nearly killed him, to be quite honest, but gave him some very serious injuries. He came back to rallying a little bit, but it really halted his Formula One career, and it's an incredible story to see him 8 years after that happened making a full-time F1 comeback.
It just shows the desire to race. I mean, like, I'm sorry, if I was in a crash that, nearly cost me a life, I probably wouldn't be driving a car normally, let alone going at, like 300 miles an hour. So, I mean, props to this guy. Honestly, he deserves it.
Yeah, and his arm's still relatively limited compared to what it was before the accident. So.
Yeah, hopefully he can get some PT for that, and hopefully get a little bit more more motion back in that. So,
now, Matt, can you think of any athlete in any sport that's spent 8 years away from the highest professional level and then come back full time?
No, it doesn't happen. The only one that maybe I could think of would be Ilya Kovalchuk. I'm saying because Chase.
Even then,
but I don't.
He came back, but he was still playing in the KHL, which is still one of the premier hockey leagues in the world. So
absolutely.
I mean,
it's a rarity to see this though. It's a rarity. I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. People now it's kind of an intergenerational thing. You're gonna have people who don't really know a ton about this guy that are going to want to watch because of his story. You're going to have people who were fans of his before the accident that are going to be watching it. I think it's awesome. I think it's unbelievable. Anyone that is an athlete, or just anyone in general, should know about this story because you see so many, injuries and, issues that keep people away from the sport that they competed in. But this guy, I mean, it's unbelievable. I really,
it really is.
I don't know how else to say it. It's great for him. It's great for the sport. Like you said, he's still limited.
I think the only thing that really can come close to that is a name you guys probably haven't heard of before with Chris Winkie. And he was originally a minor league baseball player drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays. And then he decided that his career wasn't going where he wanted it to, so he decided to play football at Florida State University. And he ended up doing very well there, and I believe he came close to winning a Heisman. Oh, yep, no, he won the Heisman Trophy in 2000. He had his number retired, and, he did very well. And, I mean, I'm sorry, if you win the Heisman, then you kind of made it. But it just shows you that, I mean, granted, he was still being an athlete, but it's very different, very different coming back from baseball to football. And the only person who I think could do that better is probably Bo Jackson. But then again, Bo Jackson were to auto race, I'm pretty sure he'd win everything. But that's just because Bo Jackson. Yep. So, but
as far as this news goes, when are they looking to get him back on the track right out of the gate?
Well, he
next
did
season?
some free practice sessions for Williams this year.
Okay.
He was in contention for a seat last year, actually, as well. Sergei Sorokin brought some money from Russia, and Sorokin kind of underperformed, and now Kubica's got some money from Poland coming in, so that always helps in this day and age, especially for a team like Williams that finished last in the constructors' standings this year. But yeah, certainly great to see the 2008 Canadian Grand Prix winner back on track, and hope Williams can give him a good car because it would be great to see him do well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and some of the main NASCAR Cup Series news. There's so much silly season stuff that if we tried to go through all of it, we'd run out of time. But Kurt Busch from Stewart-Haas to Ganassi, that was confirmed last week. I think, again, that was something that we were all expecting. It was just a matter of time for deals to get confirmed and worked out and everything. Ryan Newman will be moving from Childress to Roush. Martin Truex Jr., obviously with Fernando Giroux closing down, he and his crew chief are going to Joe Gibbs Racing.
That's a good pickup for Joe Gibbs.
Matt DiBenedetto. So because Furniture Row won't exist anymore, they won't have that alliance. Levine Family Racing will be switching from Chevy to Toyota. They'll be a Joe Gibbs aligned team, and they have hired Matt DiBenedetto to come over from Go Fast Racing to drive their cars. DiBenedetto actually drove for Gibbs as a development driver. He's been bouncing around with a lot of underfunded teams ever since then. So if this Levine alliance works as well as the Furniture Row alliance, we could see him put in some good results next year.
Yeah, and that's what you want. I want to just jump back real quick because I'm a Ryan Newman fan, sort of, because I picked up his hat at the race, the race and stuff. Can you fill me in a little bit with
was a powerhouse in the early 2000s. In 2005, the Chase was only the top 10 in points back then, and Roush put all 5 of their cars into the chase for the Cup. And just recently, with a lot of sponsorship woes and lack of performance, the team just is now a 2-car operation. There are rumors that they're closing down their Xfinity team entirely next season. They used to have a truck team. They don't have that anymore, although Cup involvement in trucks basically disappeared now as a whole anyway. But the team's been kind of on a steady decline. They've always struggled with sponsorship, and with the economy getting worse and sponsorship becoming even harder to find, you've seen them really start to struggle a lot.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons they actually brought Matt Kensington this year mid-season to replace Trevor Bayne, just because Matt's obviously a proven winner and a champion, just to kind of see where the team was at. And some of the Xfinity drivers moving up, Daniel Hamrick staying with RCR. He's replacing Ryan Newman. Matt Tifft will be joining a new team at Front Row Motorsports. They're expanding from 2 to 3 cars. And Ryan Preece replaces AJ Allmendinger at JTG Doherty Racing. So 3 young guys coming up to Cup. It'll be interesting to see how they do.
Absolutely. Get some youth into the Cup Series. I love it.
Yep. Hey, you know what? Legends got to start somewhere. So, I mean, I'm excited for these young guys to come up because, I mean, I definitely think that I feel like this generation of auto racers is going to be something to be feared with. Kind of like the Dale Earnhardt, Jimmie Johnson, Tony Stewart, that era. It's just where there was literally anyone could have won a race, and it was just like big name.
I think we're definitely seeing a changing of the guard right now. All right, well, as we go into the final few minutes here, I want to wrap up this semester's worth of shows by asking each of you, do you have any way too early predictions for the 2019 season. This can be in NASCAR, F1, IndyCar, any form of auto racing you can think of.
Way too early prediction. Joey Logano repeats.
I was about to say the same exact thing. I can't believe you said that.
Man, Joey Logano has been my favorite racer for so long, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned that the first day I was on your show was Joey Logano was my driver, and when I heard he won, I was losing my mind, and I'm just like, let's go, and I think he's gonna repeat. I think that right now, looking at the standings and the way things went, I think the only one who really has a chance of taking him down right now would either be one of the Busch brothers. Other than that, I don't see Truex coming back. I don't see Harvick and Keselowski. I just don't think he has it in him. So, I mean, I think Logano is going to repeat. If not, it's way too early for a reason. So
I'll go over to F1. I think Haas F1 will score a podium. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what track it's going to be at. Ferrari's got a strong power unit. Maybe it'll come at Monza, a power-dependent track, but that's my prediction. We'll get some American pride up on that podium next year.
I love it.
It would be great to see.
I guess another way too early prediction I would put out there is I think that we could be seeing, after next season, I think that Hailie Deegan, being a Hailie Deegan fan, I definitely think there's a possibility of seeing her switch over to ARCA, or at least be involved in some of the ARCA races at some point along the road this year.
Yeah. Well, on that note, favorite motorsport moment, Matt, I think I already know what your answer is going to be.
I think we might have the same one. I'm not sure.
Well, let's see.
Well, moment that I got to experience was going down with you to Dover and taking in my first race. And it's like everyone there said, when you get your first taste, you fall in love with it and you want more. I can't wait to go back at some point, hopefully. God willing, and the creek don't rise. I look forward. I'll trek it up to New Hampshire too and catch the races this summer up there when the K&N East, when they have their races up there. It was unbelievable. It was an awesome experience. The people that were there, the atmosphere was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I loved it. And I wouldn't have traded that situation with all the rain delays and all the kind of headaches, getting there the next day. It was a Saturday, and they got everyone in one line going through. We missed the start. I wouldn't have traded that for anything, honestly.
You're not going to mention Hailie Deegan's win?
That would be what I didn't experience. I would say Hailie Deegan's win.
And Chase, I assume yours would probably be Logano winning the championship.
I don't know. It was bittersweet seeing that. I mean, it really was. But I think probably, I forget what race it was, but remember there was a race. I was watching it with my dad, and there was a crash up front, and it literally took out almost everyone who was actually.
I think that was one of the Xfinity playoff races.
Yeah, I remember because literally I was watching it, and then I messaged you. I'm like, hey, you watching the race? And you're like, no, I'm kind of writing a paper right now. And then literally as I get that text message, my dad's like, wreck! I look up, literally, everyone in the top 10 just completely wrecked. It completely changed the entire race, and like. People ended up getting kicked, or people ended up getting eliminated from the playoff. It was just like, it was intense. And just one of those moments where I'm just like, oh my word. Just like one of those like, oh my gosh moments where you can't help but stand there and just be in awe. So I think that would probably have to be my top moment of the season. So.
Yeah, well, mine would probably be Kimi Räikkönen getting the win at the U.S. Grand Prix, which, as a Ferrari fan, it was nice to see Ferrari win in general.
Viva la Ferrari.
Yeah, but to see Kimi break that long winless drought, one of the most popular drivers in the sport with a great personality, I think that was probably my favorite moment. And lastly, Matt, what was the most surprising moment of the season to you?
What was the most surprising moment of the season to me? I would say. The switch that we talked about earlier tonight, the Johnson and Alonso switch, I found that very, very surprising. I found it very exciting, very intriguing. But as far as most surprising moment, besides the Joey Logano win, I already said that earlier, I think last week. So to kind of mix it up a little bit, I would say the Alonso and Johnson switch.
Right.
I'm going to have to go with the Logano because honestly that came out of the left field.
The big three and me.
Yeah, I'm just like, wow. just so out of left field. But you know what? Well deserved. He's going to be, it's a changing of the guard. And you know what? He's going to be one of those, he's one of those first new generation racers to really make a name for himself, So.
Yeah. Well, my most surprising moment would probably be the fact that Jimmie Johnson went winless all year. I could not believe that even with Hendrick struggling at the start of the year, Chase Elliott won 3 races the second half of the season. So it was very surprising for me to see a Johnson-Canal pairing that's worked so well, that's won 7 championships, go 36 races in a row. And really, if you look past the Roval, wasn't really even in contention for a win, aside from that one race all season.
I mean, he had 2 top 5 finishes. That is not Jimmie Johnson racing. So I'm kind of curious to see how he's going to come back from that. It was a bad season for him. So.
All right. Well, that's it for this week and this semester's worth of shows here. Hopefully we'll be back next semester. It won't be during this time slot. I know that because I'm taking Tuesday night class next semester, so we'll have to work around that.
I'll see you there.
I think it's the same one. Yes.
Go.
All right. But, yeah, we will see you sometime, I guess. For Matt Cole and Chase Draus, I'm Ben Schneider, and we'll see you next semester.
Have a good night.
Peace.